cherry chapstick. I kissed a girl just to try it. I hope my boyfriend don't mind it. It felt so wrong, it felt so right. Don't mean I'm in love tonight. I kissed a girl and I liked it. I liked it. No, I don't even know your name. It doesn't matter. You're my experimental game. Just human nature. It's not what good girls do. Not how they should behave. My head gets so confused. Hard to obey. I kissed a girl and I liked it. The taste of her cherry chapstick. I kissed a girl just to try it. I hope my boyfriend don't mind it. It felt so wrong, it felt so right. Don't mean I'm in love tonight. I kissed a girl and I liked it. I liked it. Us girls, we are so magical. Soft skin, red lips, so kissable. Hard to resist, so touchable. Too good to deny it. Ain't no big deal, it's innocent. I kissed a girl and I liked it. The taste of her cherry chapstick. I kissed a girl just to try it. I hope my boyfriend don't mind it. It felt so wrong, it felt so right. Don't mean I'm in love tonight. I kissed a girl and I liked it. I liked it.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to today's panel, which is our final event in the Experiences on TikTok virtual panel series, which is co-sponsored by Arizona State University's Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics and the Online Creators Association. I'm Liz Grumbach, the Program Manager for Digital Humanities and Research at ASU's Lincoln Center, which is an organization committed to exploring co-creative and participatory strategies for ethical technological innovation. And I'm joined today by my collaborator.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sarah Florini. I'm an associate professor of film and media studies here at ASU. I'm also affiliated with the Lincoln Center and have been doing work with them for a while now. I'm really happy to be here and excited about this panel, Liz.
Yeah, we're so excited because this event has been a year in the making, over a year in the making. And it's been a pleasure and an honor to collaborate with the Online Creators Association to make events like this alongside our ongoing research collaborations happen.
And this collaboration really grew out of a project that Liz and I began when we, like everyone else, got onto TikTok at the beginning of the pandemic. And we were immediately fascinated with the algorithm and how the content creators and users were navigating this platform and its sort of ever shifting algorithmic terrain. So from there, we contacted Toka, and TX Watson came and gave us a talk that is up on YouTube if you'd like to look at it. And since then, we've been collaborating with Toka to try and find places where we can combine our academic approaches and resources with the invaluable experiential knowledge that they have as content creators. And so this series of panels is part of that.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And so I have a few housekeeping things before we get the event started, but first I wanted to start today by extending an intention. This is going to be a feminist and an anti-racist space. We are going to be proceeding from a place of care together and create a virtual space where all are welcome and discrimination and intolerance are not tolerated. We do have live captioning available today. Thank you to Megan Teal for being our captioning provider. In case captions lag in Zoom, a link to the full live transcript will be posted in the chat momentarily. And before we get started. Please note that both chat and the Q&A function in Zoom are enabled today. Please pose questions for panelists using that Q&A function in Zoom. We're going to do that to keep back of house organized. Please pose questions at any time during the event, and when audience Q&A starts, we'll be communicating those to our moderator today. However, please note that the chat is enabled, so jump into the chat, say hello if you'd like to, if you can, react to conversation, highlight things that, that you find are interesting or important, and let's be in community together. And I will pass the mic over to Sarah to introduce our moderator.
All right, thanks, Liz. Well, our moderator today is Cecilia Gray. Many of you probably know her from TikTok and as being the voice of Toca Updates. She is the founder and co-administrator for the Online Creators Association, which is a labor rights advocacy group for content creators, but she mostly just wants to make jokes on the internet. So thank you so much for being here, Cecilia.
Thank you, guys. I'm so excited to get started. All right, so as they said, my name is Cecilia Gray. I'm at Cecilia is Gray on TikTok, and I will be your moderator this afternoon. In a moment, I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves quickly with their name and their TikTok handle. We're going to give a more detailed introduction to everyone with everywhere you can find them and all the projects they're currently working on after you've had the opportunity to hear them talk. I know that when they say something you will inevitably love, like on every panel I've ever sat in on, I say, oh my God, I can't remember their handle, and I want to go follow them. So we want to make sure that we don't run into that situation. So in alphabetical order, Deja.
Hi, it is amazing how after 2 years of Zoom, I still lose the start video button. Hi, my name is Deja, and my handle is Deja Talks TV.
And Kenna.
Hi, I'm Kenna, and my handle is at Kenna the Vampire Slayer.
And Mackenzie.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie. My Instagram is McKenzie, spelled with an SEA at the very end, not a ZIE. Cool.
So to start from the very beginning, what got you on TikTok in the first place and when? Let's start with Mackenzie.
So I joined TikTok kind of right before the pandemic. I wanted to talk about ocean stuff, gay ocean stuff, and that's what I did.
And Kenna?
I was also, I think, part of the kind of pandemic wave of creators. I had been kind of on the app for a while. My best friend had been like trying to get TikTok famous as a joke for like a year, and I was just kind of on the app as like a friendly supporter. And then I just started saying things, and the next thing I knew, people were replying to them, and then I just didn't stop doing it.
And Deja, when did you join?
No surprise. I'm also one of the pandemic people. Right as my school said there's going to be an extended spring break, my roommates flew to their homes. I was alone for like 3 hours and I started making TikToks. And yeah, just once I started talking about film and television, I felt like I found a groove, and people seem to care.
And like speaking of that group, do you remember when you made that transition between I am a consumer of TikToks, I am a user of this app, and oh, I am making things on this app, I am a creator? Deja, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Initially I made a lot of content that was more broadly politically centered, and that takes a lot. All love and respect to the people who make that a consistent part of their TikTok. But I made one video, went to sleep, woke up, and had like 5,000 followers. So my immediate reaction was, I'm going to delete my account. I don't want to be perceived. But my younger cousin, actually, he was on TikTok from the Musical.ly days. He was one of those kids. And he's like, do you know how long I worked to get my 5,000? You're staying on the app. But then I was like, all right, if I'm going to be here and 5,000 people are going to see what I do, I want to talk about something that I love. So they'll either stick with me or they'll leave. But either way, I'm going to enjoy myself. And that's when I started talking about television. And Yeah, thank you to my cousin. And it eventually just kind of becomes ubiquitous, I feel like, where it's like, okay, now I'm just used to, I have a thought about this and getting a sense of like, this will be interesting given XYZ that's going on. And just, I don't know if a flip switched as much as he told me I had to stay. So I decided to make it work.
You know, we love peer pressure. We love bullying here. Kenna, can you talk about when you felt that switch?
This is probably gonna sound weird, but I don't know, I kind of checked out from it. Like I remember kind of watching the following number grow and not really comprehending what it meant. I don't know if that makes sense. It wasn't really until my parents found my TikTok that I was like, oh my God, this is real. It was like all of a sudden there was like a bleed over into my real life. And I was like, oh man, like people are seeing these, like human beings are perceiving me, which I think I knew the whole time, but it just all of a sudden felt so more real once my mom was like, this is you. Like, I know this is you. But yeah, I remember kind of like realizing the impact I was having, realizing that like my younger brother was going to see those videos, and realizing that like, I don't know, I kind of felt like I had a responsibility to start taking it more seriously. Like prior to that, I had definitely been doing a lot more just like pick up the camera and talk. And that's still definitely what I do. But I remember at a certain point feeling like I needed to like buckle in and start doing like research for videos and fact checking myself, because I knew if I didn't, the audience was going to do it for me. Like you don't get any leeway when you are a Black feminine presenting person trying to assert that you know something. And so I just remember realizing at a certain point that I like had to start taking it seriously.
And Mackenzie, when was that switch over for you?
I actually joined TikTok with the intention of being a creator. I was a creator on Instagram for quite a while. I was like, my background is in marine science, and so I was sharing a lot of marine science and kind of like just ocean stuff on my Instagram. But I wanted more of a queer community, and it was really hard to find on Instagram, because on Instagram I feel like a lot of it is curated, right? Where it's like, look at me and my partner, we're wonderful and perfect and everything is amazing. And I was like, this isn't real. And then a friend of mine was just like, the queer community on TikTok is incredible, you should get on. And I joined the app, and like there was some trend going around where it's like I can steal your girl or whatever. And I was like, I don't want to steal your girl, I want to steal you. Like I want you. Like I don't need to steal women. And all of a sudden I had 10,000 followers, and I was like, whoa. And so I kept kind of going on that route, but then I made the transition from like a silly, just queer space to like actual, like Kenna said, like checking my, not necessarily fact checking, but sharing more of my science and more like logistic stuff, because of all of the stuff that TikTok does. Oh, I forget that we can swear. All of the shit that TikTok does, all of the awful shit that TikTok does to the queer community. I was like, I'm done with this. And so I've made the transition to like more of a like creator, like not really like funsies, just more like science and a very curated page, probably about 6 months ago, because I was tired. I was done. I was done with TikTok shit. I was over it.
So Mackenzie, you pointed out that there was an existing queer community on TikTok, and that's in truth why a lot of people migrated over to TikTok, because one, it's a little more candid, and two, there were all of these niches that you could fall into. So like when you logged onto TikTok for the first time, and that recommendation engine started getting to work and sorting you into your interest bubbles, how quickly do you feel like TikTok figured you out? And has anyone here had the experience of TikTok perhaps knowing something about you before you knew it about yourself? Deja, I see you nodding heavily. Do you want to start?
I downloaded TikTok as a cis het Christian woman of God, and here I am. I was like, it's interesting that they're suggesting these videos for me. More interesting that I like them. Anyways, I knew that I was queer, but I was so content with being in the closet. TikTok is actually the first place I came out, because somebody asked me, it was in that phase where people would say like, please tell me you listen to Girl in Red. And I was like, how do I answer this question? And I was like, do I want to answer with the most white queer answer possible? No. So I said more like Frank Ocean. And I remember looking at that and like thousands of people liked the comment and I was like, this is weird. This is really weird. But yeah, TikTok definitely knew quite a bit that I wasn't ready to hear, but was ready to double click.
Kenna, do you have anything to add to TikTok knowing things about you before you knew?
Yeah, I mean, it's always like weird little niche things. I honestly run into it more with my neurodivergence than I do with being queer. There are so many things that I have been doing my entire life that are like autistic stims that I just didn't clock were stims because I'd never seen another Black person do that before. And it had never thought to me because of how I had seen autism presented through such a white lens that like messing with my box braids, or like I know another really common stim amongst Black people is like booty pops and like hip hopping. Like it just never occurred to me that those little things that I did could potentially be stims until I started seeing other Black autistic people on that app talking about it. And so I remember that was genuinely a huge part of what led to my diagnosis. Is for the first time I just saw what another Black autistic person looked like, and I was like, wait a minute, I do all of those things to like a troubling degree. And so yeah, TikTok really diagnosed me on that one.
And Mackenzie, did you, and this is also, there's a bit of a generational divide on the panel right now. Mackenzie and I are older, Deja and Kenna are younger. So, I mean, you were coming to TikTok as a queer woman.
Yeah, I've been queer since I was a young person. I have been queer for more than 16 years, more than most people on that app are old. I've been queer for longer than they have been alive, and that is scary and sad. But I actually have the opposite situation or thing that happens to me where TikTok like forgets that I forgets that I'm a scientist and like doesn't put me on science TikTok. Like I have to like search for science videos or like go and look up creators. And I don't know if that has anything to do with like me being a woman or me especially being like a feminine presenting woman. Like people don't think like science, like especially science women, they're like, you can't be no feminine allowed, must be masculine science woman. And I'm like, no, I like to wear lipstick and do fun things. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. So they forget, but I also get put on like Spanish TikTok quite frequently, and I don't speak Spanish. Like I speak a decent amount of French and I'm never put on French TikTok, never. But like at least 5 times a week, I get a full Spanish video, no subtitles, nothing. And I'm like, how did I end up here? You won't put me on science TikTok, but you'll gladly put me on Spanish TikTok. So I feel like I get the opposite effect where TikTok doesn't know what to do with me. They're like, we just know that you're gay, so here's some gay stuff, and that's it.
Actually, I love that. That's a great segue into like a thought that I was having while we're sitting here. Are there ways in which TikTok asks you to flatten your experiences? Asks you to fit into boxes that you do not necessarily fit into for the benefit of the audience. Mackenzie, you're already here. Do you want to talk?
I mean, I'm like a very big, I don't know what the correct word is, supporter, speaker of sex education. I think sex education is something that really lacks within the queer community, especially, and the lack of sex education has hugely affected the queer community. The AIDS epidemic was something that happened because we didn't really talk about gay sex and what those things entail and how to have safe gay sex. And then, we have that still persistent to this day where things like HPV are very prevalent within the woman-loving women community because we don't speak about how to properly have those protections. So I, for a long time, was also talking about sex ed because I think that's a really important thing for the queer community to try and move past, to try and talk about, especially people who are like just learning that they're gay in their adult form, like they're just forming to that idea of having sex as an adult and they've never been told that even in school, like how to have that. So I was trying to talk about those things, and TikTok didn't like that very much, so we haven't talked about that in a while because there's nothing I can do about it. TikTok doesn't like me.
And Deja and Kenna, I know that the experience of like quote unquote queer TikTok is almost universally white queer TikTok. What are the ways in which you deal with that? What are the boundaries you've had to put down? What can you talk about that a little bit? Can I see you nodding?
Yeah, it was something that I felt the need I felt a really pressing need to establish myself specifically as a Black queer creator, and not just a queer creator. I do feel like making that specification counts. And it felt really important to do that in particular once I started considering how my privileges factor into the way that I'm perceived on the app. I'm mixed race, my mom is white. There's a good portion of people on that app who see me and don't realize that I'm Black until I say it. And even if they do, I'm still light skinned. I'm still receiving a privilege that like monoracial dark skinned Black people do not get. And because of that, there's like a very particular niche that I can fit into in which I am palatable to white people. And once you start stepping outside of it, that's when they start to dislike it. And realizing how much that box also exists within the queer community was something that I honestly hadn't even realized yet because of where I grew up. Where I grew up, there just were not a lot of other gay people. And so it was kind of like whoever you could find, you latched onto. And I realized in hindsight that there were so many racist remarks and red flags that I was letting slip by just because I needed somebody else who understood this part of my experience. And so, yeah, I've definitely found that making sure that it's understood that like my Blackness and my queerness cannot be separated. Those two things are linked because they're all in this body. This body is Black and queer. And so those experiences cannot and will not be separated. Making that clear and loud in everything that I do, whether I'm talking about media or political issues, I find just kind of sets this boundary of like, she is not to be fucked with. Like people know that if they say something in my comments that I'm going to have something to say about it, or that other people in my comments are going to have something to say about it. And of course, you do everything you can as a creator to make sure that does not become a toxic environment. But the benefit of that is having a community that protects and uplifts each other. And that's, I think, really all you have when you're talking about an app as dysfunctional as TikTok, is the community spaces that you create together.
And Deja, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'll just add like white queer people have, okay, white men have sent me more death threats, but putting that extreme aside, white queer people have been oftentimes like they've made me the most uncomfortable on the app a lot of times with comments, there's a reason my TikTok DMs are closed now. And just this entire feeling of like I said, when I went onto the app, I knew I was queer, but I was nowhere near ready for anyone else to know that. And then once I finally was, I was like, I don't know if I want TikTok to be all up in my business, because there's this incredible sense of like ownership that happens, I think, where there's this idea of like, they're one of us, but just like Kenneth said, like my Blackness and my queerness aren't separate. And so when they accept only my queerness and only me as like an object of desire, it's like, oh, that's not actually me, and you have nothing to do with me, and actually go follow someone else. Like you don't need to be in this space. And then on the other hand, like great, again, same as what Kenneth said, that with an app that dysfunctional, it's about the community you end up creating. And some of my closest friends who, are queer, and we just get to just experience queer Black joy, I've met through TikTok. So there's such a range with that app.
So we've touched on our communities and finding all this joy in our community. Let's talk about how the app itself interacts with your content, and like the moderation infrastructure, the For You page. When you actually post something that is openly about a queer topic or being queer, how does TikTok treat you? Who did I put names down so I could call on people. Kenna, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I mean, something that I kind of discover, and I have no idea how much of it is like being Black and how much of it is being feminine presenting and how much of it is the intersection of the two. But my general experience is that once any video I make about being queer makes it past my audience, the immediate assumption is that I'm a straight person inserting myself into queer business, like down to little things. I remember I think I just like jokingly referred to myself as a bottom in a video. It like wasn't even the crux of the video. It was just like an offhand joke I made. And I remember there were like 3 or 4 comments that were like, are the straights really using top or bottom now? And I remember just being, you know what? I just remembered the context of the video was me talking about how being a woman of color affects my experience as being bisexual. Like, it was a video where I was talking about experiences dating both men and women. And then half of the comments were, are the straights really using top and bottom now? And I remember it was just this like intense feeling of like invalidation. And then it immediately spiraled to, in the comments, an argument between several people who were not me about whether or not I was straight or gay. And I remember feeling like, do they not know? I can see this. Like, I can, it's in my notifications as it comes in. And so it's, yeah, there's just kind of a general, like, I don't know. It's like people are so bewildered by the idea that somebody can be like Black and ADHD and queer and have just like that much going on in one body, I guess.
And Deja, would you like to add anything about how TikTok treats you?
I just decided to ignore her. She's got a lot of drama going on, always changing things up. There's a big news event, everything's crazy. Sometimes I open my For You page and it's like a video with 2 likes from a 12-year-old. So I like kind of created these like mental metrics in my head where it's like, if I achieve this, then I did fine on the video. The rest is TikTok, you know? And because so many of the things that I care about a lot, talking about, especially like queer Black representation, they're not going to get nearly as many views. And I just had to start focusing on, I just need a few people who need to see it to find it. Because now I'm going to make Kenna blush, but I remember the first video I saw from Kenna, and it started with, "Hi, I'm Kenna. I'm a film major and a Black girl." And I was like, I'm those things. And like, if I can just give someone that feeling, I have to accept that sometimes TikTok will only give like 1,000 people that feeling. Because if I personally, when I start worrying about it, it turns into a big spiral that ends up discouraging me more than anything else. So I just personally had to block it out.
And we actually had a piece of this conversation in yesterday's panel with Fat Creators, is this idea of, because we're on an algorithmically driven platform, there are just going to be things that reflect the user bias at all times. And so of course, videos coming from especially Black femme presenting people are just not going to get the same traction because the algorithm is not correcting for that internal bias. And it, at a certain point, you have to say like, okay, this is where I am and I can reach this many people. Mackenzie, I wanted to follow up specifically with you because you have spoken to a human being who works at TikTok, which wild, first of all. But you've had official interactions with TikTok, and can you talk about how that worked out and how they treat you now and all of that?
Awful. I like I said, I've been on the app for a while. I was invited to the 2020 Pride event, which went up in a dumpster fire. They didn't do a very good job of realizing that a queer space needs to have extra precautions because we are heavily harassed online. And I guess they sent the link to the little Zoom meeting to people that didn't like queer people. And so before the meeting ever even began, it was just filled, like the chat was filled with racial slurs, like queer slurs, just awful messaging. The whole thing got taken over, like the broadcast got taken over with a video. It was awful. They ended the whole thing, didn't email us or anything for 2 hours. Then emailed us after the 2 hours and said, we've canceled the event, we'll let you know eventually. And then we eventually got into little like smaller groups, like they divided us into smaller groups and they brought us in. And so I was in a room with the queer representative that we got in my room was JS. That's some great representation. Thank you for giving me only JS as the representation of on the floor. They were like, look, a queer person that does good on this app, it's JS. And I was like, I I'm gonna go push myself off a building. Okay. So then, and the whole time JS was in the room too. And like, while we're talking and like verbalizing our complaints with TikTok, and she was just like drawing and stuff. And I was like, this is really awkward. Like, you're just sitting here, please leave. Sorry, that was a distraction. That was a detour. But anyways, we spent like an hour and a half talking to the people at TikTok, basically saying like, these are the things that we need to be safer on this app. So much of what happens is it gets reported and we can't deal with it. We get harassed, we get mass reported, and there's no nuance to any of that. And we need to be able to deal with that some way, because it's very obvious that there are Discord servers, that there are groups of people that really don't like queer people and will find your account and will just harass and get it taken down. And it's happened to numerous people. Like, I think we all know at least 1 or 2 people that this happened to, right? At least, right? And so we brought all this like up to them and had all these conversations about how we needed just better features for the queer community and better protections. And none of that ever happened. Not a single suggestion ever happened, ever went down. And we, of course, emailed back forth, lovely discords of people who are just so kind and nice and want to say nice things to queer people, right? So they came to my account, and my account was just getting flooded with awful things, and I messaged them, and they like actively ignored me. And then the following year, when Pride came around, I was like, all right, well, like, thankfully I'm on the list already. And they didn't invite me to the 2021 Pride. They like actively ignored me for the 2021 Pride, even though I had been at the one originally. So, and then from there, I've just been actively ignored by TikTok. Like I said, I've had a lot of things that happen. Recently, I had like a pretty big like suicide threat thing happening where people were telling me to go kill myself. There was quite a few videos. I couldn't get them taken down. I even sent one to Toka. I was like, hey, if you guys can report this. It was telling me to go take a toaster bath. And like the account was literally like, go take a toaster bath. And I like couldn't get it taken down. And I put it in Toka. People in Toka were reporting it. I had friends that were duetting it to try and get it taken down, and it just never got taken down. And so I actually reported it. Like, I went into the app and I was like, hey, like, here's a link. This is very much telling me to go kill myself. I think that's inappropriate, probably breaks your community guidelines. Is there something we can do about it? No report, nothing ever happened. I'm pretty sure the video is still up to this day. I checked it a couple days ago and it was still up. This was 2 months ago, 3 months ago that this happened. Like, it's still up. When I went to go to the report, I was like, oh, let's go see what they said in the report. They closed the report. They like read it and closed the report. So they actively have seen me say there's videos of somebody trying to kill myself, and they're like, and that's my experience with TikTok.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the entirety of it, because that is a long and terrible story. And honestly, thank you for the segue into sort of the last thing I want to ask before we get into audience questions is, if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about TikTok, what would that thing be? I know that I'm going to moderation, and I'm positive it's probably going to be the same for all of us. Kenna, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, if I could wave a magic wand and fix one thing, it would 100% be the reporting system. I think that thing is about as coherent to me as like a fairy riddle. I have no idea how it works. I have no idea what the process is. I don't think anyone is super clear on how it works. But what I do know is that the way that it functions, it almost always seems to target marginalized creators. I know one big thing that I think hurts a lot of Black creators is there's an option where once your video gets reported, TikTok just starts asking people, does this video make you uncomfortable? And that's a really loaded question, because different people doing different things can make different people uncomfortable. And if you are the kind of person who just does not like to see Black people exist in certain spaces, if you just don't like to see queer people exist in certain spaces, if you're a bigot, you are going to be made uncomfortable by any marginalized person doing anything. And exactly, why is discomfort the metric? The idea that discomfort is a bad thing, that the discomfort that white people experience, that straight people experience, that people with privilege experience in conversations about these dynamics, the idea that discomfort is a bad thing is, I think, a part of the problem. Discomfort is where growth happens. And so, yeah, if I could wave one magic wand, it would be to make it so that like so many marginalized creators are not having their content just bottlenecked by people who don't want to hear what they have to say, regardless of what they're saying.
And Deja, what would you change?
I second literally everything Kenna said. And yeah, I guess just to add kind of a different thing that I would change separate from the many issues with moderation, I would love more control over the audience that gets to see your videos. If I could click a little 18+ button, if I could click a followers, which I guess some people can now, but not me, to do followers only, if I could do any of that, so many videos that I want to make, but I'm like, as a personal mental health choice, am not going to deal with the comments. And when you turn off comments on a video, people go to others. Like, if I could just say this is for my followers, that would be amazing.
And Mackenzie, what would you
Um,
fix?
Obviously, everything that has already been said, but also I just wish that accounts were held to the same standard. After this last Pride event that like they actively did not want me to attend, I like lost it a little bit. And I started like showcasing all of the things that I was finding, because if you make like a burner account and start engaging with any sort of transphobic or homophobic content, your entire For You page just becomes like this festing pool of awful content. And so I did that, and I took screenshots of things like being queer is a mental illness, the queer should die, like all, and I took queer, like I still have the screenshots of all of it. And I would, report it and all these things, and they wouldn't take it down. And at one point there was this video that was like being queer is a mental illness, and it was like a very awful video, and I duetted it so I could be like, can you guys please report this? And my account got banned for 7 days, but the video itself was still up. So that there's obviously not a fair field happening. Like there's obviously different levels of moderation that go on, and certain accounts are held to a completely different standard than others. And so I that's one of the things that I really wish would stop, because obviously if we're mass reporting something as a queer community and that's not being taken seriously, but a bunch of bigots are mass reporting us and that is taken seriously, why is that fair? How is that allowed?
And this is just sort of a thing that we have now been told from a couple of sources, and now we can see it in the app, is we are held responsible for any flags that get put on our account, even if we appeal it, even if the app itself says like, oh, actually you didn't break any community guidelines violations. It's still like, it's like on your permanent record. It's like high school. And you'll get that notification that you got a violation, and you'll go through the center, and there will be, the whole list of videos that you've gotten violations on. And we know who this is going to disproportionately affect. The internet has existed for a long enough time that we know, and there have been good studies done that show that like the people that are hurt most are the most marginalized people. And of course, they are going to be the ones that have the most people targeting them, have the most people trying to silence them as often as they can. And so TikTok holding us, my light went out, TikTok holding us responsible for the bigots that decide to come and flood our accounts is just it's so irrational. It doesn't make any sense. With all of that, I'm going to ask everybody, again in alphabetical order, to go around and give their full plugs while I pull some audience questions. So Deja, could you start?
Absolutely. I'll make it really easy for you guys. I am Deja Talks TV everywhere. So DAEJAH Talks TV. So that's on TikTok, of course, and then Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I should have a video coming out soon where I talk with a lovely TikToker at Freddy's Roommate about the Batman. So that should be really fun and exciting. And yeah, if you guys like conversations with my face, feel free to check that out.
Is that me?
Yeah, Kenna, you're next. Sorry. I'm reading.
Hi.
Sorry, Kenna, go.
No, you're good. Sorry. Hi, I'm Kenna. My TikTok handle is at Kenna the Vampire Slayer. My Twitter is at Mouse Abolition, and my Instagram is at human_espresso. My social media is a bit of a mess right now because I got a big girl job. So I'm kind of adjusting to the lifestyle of like job that pays my bills and then like little part-time creator gig. But yeah, so upcoming projects, I'm going to be part of a D&D campaign that is streaming with Atypical Table. TX Watson is also a part of it. I'm very, very, very excited about it. There's a lot of really wonderful creators who helped come together to put this thing on. I can't wait for it to air. I'm also going to be launching a Patreon in late April, early May. I have a lot of personal creative projects that I'm working on. I'm currently writing a book. And so I'm going to be sharing content about like how I do my recording process and then also about my writing process. And then I also have a letterbox that exists, but there's nothing on it yet. People just keep telling me to start a letterbox. And I have in fact caved to that pressure. So
Hi. Okay. I'm Mackenzie. I'm Mackenzie on in TikTok. So the same spelling, but instead of Z-I-E, it's S-E-A, like the ocean. I'm a marine naturalist and scientist. So that's what I do by trade. The same username on Instagram, but there's an underscore in front of it because some bitch stole my name. Rude. I do a lot of queer advocacy. I help run a couple queer groups. One of the things I work on right now is LGBT in STEM. I made LGBTQ plus women in STEM 2 scholarships last year. I'm working on creating more scholarships for the LGBT community this year for Pride. It's a big project that we're already on the works of. So if you are looking for that, you can go find my social medias. So specifically my Instagram will have more updates about it. Like I said, my TikTok has become much more just kind of commercial and fun and like sharing ocean science because I gave up. I constantly, I'm so tired of just being constantly put on a violation timeout. So I try and avoid it now. Because even videos, like if you had a violation that took place and then you appealed that to appeal, even if the video comes back that you didn't break violations, I still get like held. Like I had a video that was like, you're on violation for 7 days, you have a 7-day timeout. And I was like, okay, and I appealed it. And then 3 months later, they were like, just kidding, that wasn't a violation, but also you're now on timeout for 3 more days. So a video that I wasn't a violation, I got 10 days of sitting in a corner. So I try and avoid that on TikTok now, but if you would like to follow my Instagram, I talk about more queer stuff. I try and be a good queer representation, and that's it. Okay.
All right, so we're going to start with this one is near and dear to my heart. How do you feel about TikTok audiences believing they're entitled to a quote unquote story time? How do you deal with them prying into your business? I know I personally, I did not go on the gender journey that many of us went on during the pandemic, but my partner did. And I hinted at that a little bit in one TikTok, and suddenly everyone was really in my business all the time about someone who does not even want to be on the internet. What boundaries have you drawn? How do you deal with that? Deja, can I start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I went on TikTok and pretty immediately got questions. I was like, I don't know you. Why are you asking me this? What is going on? And I did for a long time feel this pressure to respond to it, especially if it came up a lot. And I just turned into a person who just filters out questions I don't want to hear. I just immediately filter the comments. And also I started every once in a while, actually need to do it again, but posting a series of videos that are like, here are the ground rules for my account. And like, here's what I expect. Here's what you can expect from me. Here's what I will not tolerate. It doesn't work for everything. Not everyone's going to see the video. Not everyone's going to care. And of course, if they're not a follower of mine, they may, encounter me much later, but it does help. And there are always those like few followers who will go up to bat for you anytime. And it is so amazing sometimes just to see the same usernames pop up when I'm like, oh, I have to deal with this comment. And I'm like, oh, they already are. They've got it covered. So for me, it was just making it kind of a hard and fast boundary so that I can exist on the app. Yeah.
And Mackenzie, I know you've mostly said like, listen, I just can't do this on TikTok anymore, but what boundaries have you put up aside from that?
I mean, I think that I've learned a lot from my partner. I don't talk about my partner on social media. My partner doesn't have social media. She's not a social media person. And she, has always kind of like instilled that of being like, your day job is social media. You get to do all these things and have this world on the internet. And then at a certain point you stop and we get to have our life together. And at first I was like, well, that's really hard because I want to be able to like share with you what's going on. And then slowly I started to realize that it's actually really nice at the end of the day to be like, that's done. If I have things that I like really need to vent about or talk about, or things that I'm going to celebrate, I tell her like I've almost hit 300K on TikTok, like we're almost there, and I've been showing her every day just like the slow progression, and she of course cheers me on. But like other than that, I don't talk about our relationships. I don't, and I think because I don't, people don't ask me. Like I changed my pronouns like 3 months ago and nobody asked me a single time, and I was like, okay, we don't gotta talk about it. And so people don't really ask. I like do Q&As on Instagram every once in a while, and I like that because then you see the questions that are being asked and you get to select which ones you want to answer. You by no means need to answer ones that you don't want to. You can answer the ones that you do. And so I just try and keep, I like to share some of myself because I think that's how you build an audience and build a community, is being able to share parts of yourself and be honest with your audience. But there is also parts of myself that are private and I get to keep private. And it's kind of nice that the internet doesn't have to know about it and I don't have to justify myself to the internet. So I don't know, I feel like I've done a pretty good job of separating those two.
And Kenna, I would say you have excellent boundaries and you set some excellent boundaries. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really big, it was a really big thing for me to kind of work through as a creator and as a person. I definitely would kind of classify myself as a people pleaser, and I don't think I even realized the extent of how much I was one until I got on TikTok. I remember, again, everything happened so fast that I didn't even really feel like I had a time to grasp what my platform was or how big it was. Before I was like kind of confronted with it. And I remember at a certain point realizing that I was known as like the nice Black girl. Like I remember at a certain point realizing that pretty much every other Black creator had said to me, you are way too nice. Like you do not have to be that patient with your audience. And that was the first time anyone had really said that to me. That was one of the first times I feel like anybody had told me that it wasn't my job to spoon feed this information to people, that it wasn't my job to just volunteer that stuff up in the name of defending my points. And so I remember I sat down and I made a list of the things I was and wasn't comfortable having the internet know about me. And, I draw a lot of lines around, like, I'll talk about my identity and how I got there and what it means to me from a political stance, but I don't talk about my personal life. I don't talk about my dating life. That's not something I want to open up to the internet. That's not something I feel like they need to know. I'll joke about it, but like, that's just not the kind of creator I want to be anyway. And so I just find it easier to not open that door. But I also kind of draw lines around like my family. I try to avoid talking about my family on the internet. I have a sibling who is a minor. I don't want the internet to be seeking him out because of me. I don't want the internet to be seeking my family out because of me. I don't want what I do to become something that impacts the way that I walk through the world every day in my personal relationships. And so I literally have like a list, and it's like every time I'm getting pressured to do something, I go back and I look at that list and I remind myself, and I said, like, when you were in a headspace where you weren't being pressured, how did you feel about this? Before the pressure kicked in, how did you want to talk about this? And I look back at that and it helps me kind of remember and ground and set up that boundary. And then again, I also just get away with a lot because I'm light skinned and have like a quirky white voice. Like I think people severely underestimate how much good that does you when setting a boundary with a white person, because the truth is half of the times they think I'm kidding. Like half of the time they're like not even necessarily genuinely respecting that boundary. They're laughing at the way I delivered the information. But the end result is just that the video gets boosted and it starts a conversation about boundaries. So I am content with that.
Can we briefly talk about how creating on TikTok is different from creating on other apps? And Mackenzie, I specifically want to ask you, because you did start on Instagram, what are the differences there? What are the audiences like?
I think like the thing is that TikTok is a lot less curated. Now my TikTok is a little bit more curated because I talk more about science and things. So of course I'm bringing up photos and I'm showing things, but I still make mistakes all the freaking time, and I just like correct them on the screen, and nobody gives you grief on TikTok if you've like made it. Like I called octopus's arms tentacles, and that's never a mistake that I would normally make, but there was a war breaking out and things happening, and my brain wasn't exactly in the right position to be talking about octopus, but I was trying to because I know that people wanted the distraction, wanted like to have something else than doom scrolling. So I did it, and of course in my like disarray I called octopus's arms tentacles, which is so odd for me. And at the first I was like, oh, I'm not going to post this. I hate that. I hate that I made a mistake. And I was like, no, fuck it. Just put arms, asterisks. Like I'm making a correction. I made a boo-boo. And no one said a single thing. No one cared. And I think that's a much different environment on TikTok than it is on Instagram. On Instagram, people, but actually people on Instagram are so much more lively than they are on TikTok. There are some still on TikTok, especially the ones like if you say like a Latin word, they're like, but actually Latin's pronounced this way. And I'm like, Latin's dead language. Sit down. Latin's dead. No one cares. But besides that, that's like a small amount of people on TikTok, whereas on Instagram, it's just like 90% of the people in your comments will be like, here's my thoughts. And they're like, I don't want your fucking thoughts at all. So I think that's different. And that's why I enjoy TikTok the way that I do. Like, yes, I'm very frustrated with it. I get very irritated with, not being able to express or talk about queer issues. But I do like that so much of the audience are just enjoying it. They're just there to enjoy the 60-second video of learning about a fucking octopus and then scrolling on. Like, that's it. And I like that. I enjoy that.
And Deja, Kenna, do either of you have anything you want to add about other platforms, anything like that? I'm trying not to be a single platform person. Those people don't exist anymore. Like I used to be a blogger, and that was like a real job you could have, and like that's not real. But like God knows, I do almost all of my posting on TikTok. And that is my standard for what the audiences are like. I do agree though, Mackenzie. I think something about the curation and the perfection, the perceived perfection on Instagram, even on those like photo dump posts where you're like selecting the photos of you that you look like so casual in, but actually they're just like the best of the 20 photos that you asked someone to take while you like walked across. Even that is so perfect that I think the moments where you slip up are so much bigger and so much weirder, because so many people will just suddenly come out of the woodwork and say, hey, I don't like what you just did there for no apparent reason. It doesn't affect me at all, but I'm mad. I think we've got, where are we at? Do we have time for one more audience question? Yeah, Liz, thank you. So I just want to ask, does the TikTok algorithm ever conflate your queerness with inappropriate content? Mackenzie, you want to start? I think you're just.
I mean, that's very obvious. It's so obvious. Like, as somebody who's part of the queer community, but also part of like the science community, I have to sit there and watch my like straight science friends making content, no problems, always on the For You page, always going. And I have to put in 10 times the work, 10 times the effort to get the same results. And I know it's because my history with TikTok has been, that's a queer person that's going to start drama. That's a queer person that has been here and has said stuff. I know that they have a flag on my account that's like queer, naughty, bad. And so I have to watch, as I'm part of these two communities, one, like there's an easy time of being like, he, sustainability, look how fun it is. And I have to like literally like bust a pussy to like get anywhere near that same kind of, content. And it's so hard, and it sucks. TikTok automatically just kind of associates being queer with being bad, and it's hard. It's so hard. That's like the worst part of it all.
And Kenna, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, something odd that I discovered is that for some reason it seems like there's no way for me to ever pull myself like further onto the queer side of the algorithm without also getting pulled onto the kink side of the algorithm. And that is just like that's one of those things that feels like more loaded than I could even really dissect in the time we have left right now. And it's like, listen, do whatever you want. That's not my sex life. I don't care. Like, live your dreams. But it is jarring to be somebody who doesn't talk about those things really ever at all on my page, and to be kind of, I have a pretty snug niche. Like, I'm very snugly like race, pop culture, film. I tend to kind of stay in my lane, particularly as of late. And so it is just very strange when you start seeing that kind of content pop up, especially because I'm not the only queer person I know who also has that experience. It happens to my roommate all the time too. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, why are you conflating these things? Especially because most of the kink content I'm seeing is coming from straight people and not queer people anyway. So it's like, why is like the queer side of the algorithm and the straight like kink side of the algorithm coming hand in hand?
And Deja, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I have had, similar experiences, both Mackenzie and Kenna. I love the similarity in the names too. Makes me very happy. Um, but also, my partner is also a TikToker, and they have a unfortunate amount of straight guys following them. And it's always interesting to me how when it's something straight guys like, it's like, that's fine, leave the video up, cool. And then when it's something anyone else might be interested in, it's like, that seems wrong to us and that needs to be handled. So that's always been upsetting. And also just like, similar to kind of the conversation about boundaries, we don't post very much as like a couple. But it's also like, man, I would love for a video where like I'm giving my partner a kiss to be seen as innocently as anything else. But instead I'm like on my For You page and straight people are spitting in each other's mouths. And I'm like, how's that okay? Like I can't possibly be put in the same category as that for like a peck on the cheek, but somehow I am.
Sorry, I'm just the description of straight talk is like unfortunately accurate.
I saw that video today. That was a real reference. Like it
we'll break this down in the post-show chat. God, I'm such okay. So in this, we're gonna wrap things up here, but in the spirit of ending with joy, please tell me about a treasured experience that you've had because of the community you found on TikTok. And again, I'm gonna do it in alphabetical order for the last time. Deja.
Absolutely. Going back to community again, some friends that I hold so dear, and of course my partner, all people I've met through TikTok. And I go on there and talk about media. And growing up, if I had somebody who like was like, yeah, media and television are like serious intellectual pursuits that you can have, and they're worth talking about, it would have really impacted me. So both the community that I got and the community that I get to cultivate are just really amazing.
Yeah, very similar answer. I keep coming back to TikTok, I think, for the same reason I go back to work every day. I'm a middle school librarian, and working in a middle school during a pandemic is grueling and insane. And there's a million different factors all the time. But at the end of the day, I get to look at a kid's face and know that I made their life easier, or I helped them find a book, or I helped them figure something out. And it's a very similar thing on TikTok. I mean, the first time Deja ever told me that they were like a fan of my content, and that seeing me talk about myself, just me and my experiences, did something for them. I think I like broke down and cried. Like that was not something I think I'd ever considered, that just who I was and the experiences I had were valuable and something worth sharing. And I think like kind of keying into that and realizing that made dropping out of college easier. It gave me the confidence to cut out a lot of toxic people in my life. Like it's hard to say because God, I hate that app most days, but TikTok really did change my life. Like it gave me the ability to start building the life I actually wanted for myself instead of the life that I had been living for the past 21 years before that. And that's will always be invaluable.
I come back, or I like TikTok because I get to be the representation of a queer person in STEM. There are not many of us. We get the short end of the stick a lot. Queer people in STEM are not looked at fondly, and are underpaid and harassed and lots of awful things. And over the past 2 years, I've gotten countless messages from people that say things like, I wanted to be in STEM and I wasn't going to do it because I never saw representation like that. I never thought I would. And you've inspired me to continue doing those things. And that is that's invaluable. That's what brings me back. That's what keeps me going. It makes me keep going, is that I would love to be that representation for somebody, to see a queer person doing the science and then wanting to do it as well, and getting to create scholarships. That was cool. I loved that.
I love all of that. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up, but I just want to thank you all for being here and being so wonderful. And thank you for sharing the afternoon with us. And I'm gonna invite Liz and Sarah back on to give us our little outro.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. And I also Sarah and I want to say thank you. Thank you, Deja, Kenna, Mackenzie, and Cecilia. Absolutely amazing, Cecilia Gray, moderating this panel today. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone that connected today. And I'm actually recovering from the kind of emotions that I'm feeling after this conversation. I just want to say that, this was a perfect way to end this virtual panel series, I think. I'm just sitting in gratitude. And then housekeeping things. So the recording for this event will be posted to the Lincoln Center YouTube next week. The link to that channel will be posted in the chat in just a moment. And with that, I think I'm just ending on gratitude, especially to our panel series co-sponsors, the Online Creators Association and the ASU Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics. Our collaboration will continue to produce really rad things like this panel series. So we hope to share more information via our communication channels and networks in the near future. Sarah, I think we're ending. Any final thoughts?
This panel has been really lovely, and I'm thankful to our guests, our panelists, and to Cecilia, because those last sentiments were really legitimately beautiful. And I think it shows what these kinds of platforms can do when they do the right things for us, right? How powerful and beautiful it can be. So thank you so much. It was just really moving and wonderful and informative. So
thank you all. Have a wonderful Sunday night, and we will hope to see you again in the future soon.